Now, if we consider the stored values, same key figure stored values, so what does that mean is, so say that the this key figure values at that product level are say 40, um, 30, and 20 and 10, right? So at a product hierarchy level, if the forecast, if the key figure value is 200 for this current period, then the forecast will be divided, or the value of the key figure will be distributed as as 80, and then 60, 40, and 20, right? So it will be disaggregated based on what the current key figure value at the product level is. The other key figure stored values, what it means is that suppose that I have another key figure which is storing some value at a product level. So the disaggregation will happen based on the value stored in the key figure at the product level. So say, suppose that consensus demand generated at a product hierarchy level is 100, and the stored values in the key figure at a product level, what the statistical forecast quantity is 40, 30, 20, and 10, right? So then the consensus demand will also get disaggregated in the same proportion. That is, the value will be 40, 30, 10, 20, and 10. Other key figure calculated values. So suppose I have a key figure which is actually calculating the average of the last 6 months sales for each at each of the product level. So maybe the proportion of one product within the product hierarchy is 40%. The proportion in the sense that the proportion of sales for the last 6 months as against the proportion of sales in the total product hierarchy of a particular product is 40%. Then this disaggregation proportion key value will be used to disaggregate the current months or current periods consensus demand. So now we will create a key figure. So let's say this is this global key figure. And we will say that this is there are three key figures that we intend to create. One is stored, one is calculated, and then the third is stored and calculated. So the difference between a stored key figure, the calculated key figure, or a key figure which is both stored and calculated is this: that a stored key figure will be where the data is only stored and no calculation happens. So suppose there is a key figure where the data flows from one key figure to another key figure. There is no calculation on that key figure. So then we will just declare that key figure as a stored key figure. On the contrary, if we have a key figure where we intend to do some calculations, say suppose there is a forecast accuracy where we don't want to store any value, but rather we will have the forecast as accuracy to be used to calculate the accuracy of forecast, then we will define the key figure as calculated. The third use case is that we can have the key figures defined both as a stored and calculated. So what happens in these cases is that, say suppose there is a consensus demand which we want to allow the users or the planners to be able to update, but then if they are not updating, then we just want it to store the value which is coming from the stat forecast. So in these cases, it is useful to define a key figure as stored as well as calculated. So for our first key figure, we will just define it as a stored key figure. We will name it as a business global key figure 1. And same is the description. So we want to give it a meaningful name so that we can retrieve it later, because this is the name of the key figure that we will see in the Excel interface. The planning level. So we can choose the week broadcast planning level. This is the base planning level at which the key figure is defined. We will say that as of now, to understand that editable in the current and future period, we will define it as a sum. And one thing to note is that this sum, whatever the aggregation function we choose here, the function changes accordingly. So if you say that if we select average, then it will change to average. For the time being, we will use sum, and we will choose equal distribution for disaggregation, no proportional disaggregation. And then we will say that we want it to be converted. So suppose in the Excel interface, when somebody is looking at the data at any of the UM level, we want them to be able to view at the multiple UM levels. So for example, if they choose each, then this key figure will show the values at each level. If they choose to be to look at this at a pieces level, so suppose one piece has 10 eaches. So then they will be able to see the data in pieces. And so suppose that they want to look at a different unit of measure like cargo unit, which is not a typical unit of measure, then they have to define those unit of measure in the conversion master data. So as of now, we will use the conversion factor. So you will see that conversion factor, if we go to the key figure. So we see that this is defined in the product UM2 planning level. So it is independent of time. Now, when we have to write any calculation in the key figure, so for the first part, it is already populated where we see it is adding up the key figure value at the same level that we have defined it. Now, any other calculation, we have to press on add calculation definition. So what we are looking at it is that it is asking us to define the planning level. When we want to multiply the current value with the unit of measure conversion factor, we see that the current value is in prod UM2 for the unit of conversion factor. But this particular key figure is at weak broadcast level. So we don't have the UM2. So basically what we have to do is we have to define the calculation level at UM2. So what we will choose is we will choose weak broadcast UM2. This is the level that we want to define it. So it already defined it. So what we are doing is that we are defining at weak broadcast for this key figure, and then UF conversion factor at a prod UM2. It already defined it for us, right? So we will validate this. So this is fine, and we'll save this key figure. Now we will copy this key figure and we'll say that this ID is biz club KF2. And we will define this time it as a calculated key figure. So when we selected calculated, all these aggregation disaggregation portion is disabled. So now what we see is that we want to add a calculation level where we want to take the difference between this key figure and the consensus demand key figure. So we will define it at a week broadcast, the base planning level. And what we will say is this is equal to the earlier key figure that we created at the week broadcast minus the consensus demand at the week broadcast. To do so, we first need to check whether this particular key figure exists at the planning level. So we see that the consensus demand it has at a week broadcast. So then this is fine. Validate and we save this key figure. So in this way, now there is an error that we see. So let's see what is the error. So let's go to the inputs. So what it says is that we have defined this as a calculated key figure, but then it is showing here as stored key figure. So we'll edit it and then change the inputs so that we define it as a calculated key figure. Okay, and validate. And then we validate this. And we save this key figure. Now we have seen that how to define a key figure as a calculated key figure. So the third use case for us is that we will define how to create a key figure which is both stored and calculated. So we'll copy this. What we want to do in this key figure is we want to basically provide the planners the ability to update it, and we want to define that if there is no data in this key figure, that is the planners has not overridden it, then you store the value from the stat forecast or any other key figure. So how to do it? So first of all, we will define it as stored plus calculated, and then we maybe say it is editable, and then we already have seen that this week broadcast calculation. So we already have this at the previous key figure. So we'll edit it, and then we will not have this. So this is an Excel kind of a formula where I'm saying that if the value of the key figure, which is this glob KF 2 at the week broadcast level, right, is null, then you take the value of the bis globe KF1 at the rate week broadcast. Else, if it is not null, then you take the bis glob KF 2 value at week broadcast and validate. And save it. So in this way, we see how to define a key figure both as a stored and calculated.